In an ideal world, the government just does the right thing all the time.
Right.
But we don't live in that world. You can't have a community that is able to speak to powers that be if that community doesn't have its basic rights, the right to free expression, the right to choose who to associate with, the right to demonstrate on the street. Those are all kind of critical elements of what it takes for a community to be able to empower itself. It used to be that if people wanted to make themselves heard, they had to band together in a group. That's what civil society is about. But today, there's a magnifying effect. Civil society is able to leverage its voice through social media. They don't need access to the traditional press. They don't need to get a journalist to write about what they're doing. They can broadcast themselves through social media. Governments hate it. And we are seeing governments crack down on civil society around the world because if you're a dictator, the last thing you want is a mobilized community. But this is power that people have today. And it's a real opportunity so that even the most neglected elements of society now are able to band together and influence the public debate and the decisions of government. One of the very first reports that Human Rights Watch did on Brazil, basically 20 years ago, was about the problem of domestic violence against women. And in that era, you found husbands killing their wives for honor because they felt that somehow the wife had violated the family's well-being. Things have changed a lot since then. We now do have police stations staffed by women that are supposed to be more open to addressing these concerns. The idea of honor killing is completely discredited now, but nonetheless, we all know that domestic violence exists, that women in this country on a daily basis are murdered most frequently by people they know. And so what we really need to do now, the challenge, is to take the very good laws, the laws that prohibit all of this, and make sure that they're applied. We have to cut through the social assumptions that the home is private, because when it comes to violence, nothing is private. We didn't do the predictable thing, which was to look at the political opposition, to look at the dissidents. We decided to look at ordinary people to see how is Maduro's government treating them. And what we found is that they are suffering probably more than anybody else. We went to a community that was a very poor community, and we found that the Maduro government had simply bulldozed the community. There was some kind of urban renewal program, and these people were basically not only expelled from their houses were destroyed without compensation, without due process, without any new place to live. Whenever Maduro is challenged around his disastrous human rights record, he says, well, I'm standing up against the imperialists. I'm standing up against Washington. It's great rhetoric. But when you start looking at the reality, you realize that it's the Venezuelan people who are suffering. This is not a matter of north-south. This is not a matter of being pro or against the US government. This is a matter of, do you stand with the Venezuelan people or do you stand with their government? Because the two are not the same thing. Brazil is in a transitional moment right now. And to be honest, I'm worried about the direction of human rights with the new government. At this point, the concerns, the threats are really in the form of potential bills that have been introduced in Congress. They're not yet laws, but I'm worried about efforts to lower the age of criminality so that children are treated like adults. I'm worried about laws that would define a family very narrowly to be only a husband and wife. I'm worried about laws that would somehow undermine the prohibition against forced labor. And it threatens to have Brazil be transformed from a country that in a legal basis was very much on the forefront of protecting rights to one that is moving backwards, that is really running against modern trends. So I hope that these stop at the realm of ideas and don't become transformed into actual laws. But these are real challenges that we face right now, and Human Rights Watch is doing what it can to prevent these possibilities from becoming realities.